everybody, I'm Craftsman Steve and this is the Family Craftsman. Today we're going to talk about how to measure, because we're going to make a backing for this board. Now that it's all glued up, see how strong that is? Remember that glue episode I did last time? That's the biscuits and glue holding that all together right now. But we want to reinforce this back because ash wood is very heavy and we don't want it falling apart on our client, right? So always do it right. Okay, so we're going to need to measure the outside edges both vertically or horizontally and vertically, right? You're going to want the length and the width. We don't need to worry about depth because we're using 1/4 inch plywood to make the backing on this. Okay, so this is a tape measure. Pretty easy to understand. It's got little numbers that say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to, well, some tape measures go up to like 60 feet. I mean, this one about 20, well, it says right there, 25 feet. So, what is an inch? Well, there's 4/4 in an inch. An inch is, I don't know if you can see that, but that would be 1 inch right there. That's all an inch is. It's very small, right? It's that big. So there's 4/4 in an inch. There's also 8/8 in an inch, or 16/16 in an inch, all the way down to 32/32 in an inch. That's really tiny, okay? But for this, we're going to use probably the quarters and the inches, the full inches. So we're going to measure this out from end to end, and we have 67.5 inches. Now we're going to also measure bottom side and same 67.5 inches. Well, we don't want it to go all the way to the edges because we don't want them to see it when it's up on the wall. So we're going to subtract 1/2 inch from each side. So 67 minus 2/2 inches, which 1/2 inch times 2 equals 1 inch. So we're going to take that 67 and 1/2 inch and we're going to subtract 1 inch. What is 67 minus 1? 66 plus that 1/2 inch. So 66.5 inches. That's pretty easy, right? So we're going to mark that down. We're just going to write right on our table here. 66.5, which means 66.5. Now we're going to measure the width of our project. That noise you're hearing, that's the air compressor in the background. I apologize for that. So the width is 43 inches. We're going to try it on this side as well. Same, 43 inches. You always want to get both sides just in case one side's a little off. Okay, so 43 inches minus what? 1/2 inch on each side. So 43 minus 1 equals 42. Very good. So it's 42. No need to put a 0.0. It's just 42 inches wide. So 66.5 inches long by 42 inches wide. Very good. So now that we have our measurements, we're going to go over to the table saw. I'm going to get some help from my favorite apprentice, my wife, and we're going to cut this piece of wood, this plywood, on the table so it fits perfectly on the backing here, leaving 1 inch space all the way around. Okay? So before you do that, I want to explain how a table saw works. So before we start the table saw, I want to explain to you what a table saw does and how the blade rotates. So this is a brand new table saw blade. This is a beautiful 10-inch 80-tooth blade. This is what we're going to be similar to the one that we're going to be using in there right now, but this is just, I always keep one handy just in case I need it later. But this is what they look like. This is a saw blade. Now these teeth are pretty sharp. But if you hold it like this, you're probably not going to hurt yourself. It's just a little prickly. But if you go like that, you're really going to hurt your hands. So you don't want to do that. You want to keep your hands away from this unless you know what you're doing, okay? So, what happens is, I got my pen here, is the saw blade sits inside the cradle in the saw, and it spins really fast like that. See that? Do it this way. It spins really fast and it cuts the wood against the grain, okay? So it cuts against the wood as you push it forward. Now what that does is it actually alleviates take a look, see the blade has some width to it. So this is very important when you're lining up your cut, because the blade is about 1/8 of an inch thick. And that's something you have to consider. So if you need something cut at 42 inches, you want to make sure the blade is on the outside of that 42 inches, because if you cut right on the line, you're going to end up with, well, you're going to end up with 41 and 15/16 of an inch. Or if you cut on the inside, you're going to end up with 41 and 7/8 of an inch. So you want to make sure that this blade is lined up to the outside of your cutting line. That's very important, and that's where a lot of people mess up. But hey, measure twice, cut once, make sure you're cutting the correct side. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to go get my apprentice, my beautiful wife, and we're going to go ahead and get on this machine and show you how it works. All right. Okay, so we're at the table saw now. This is my wife, Michelle. Say hi.
Hi.
She's going to help me out because it's always better to have two people working this table saw than one person. And that's for safety reasons, really. And okay, so let's zoom in and I'll show you what this is all about. Okay, so before we put the power on, we're going to make sure that we get all of our measurements, we get the blade up to where it's supposed to be, and you want the blade to be just about 1/4 of an inch over the height of the wood. So we know the wood's at 1/4 of an inch thick. This is at just almost 1/2 an inch thick. So we're going to use a tape measure. You can use a side little piece, but I don't really trust it. I'm going to use a tape measure, and I'm just going to tape to the insides of the blade to make sure I'm at the correct depth. Okay, so now that that's done, the little wheel here is what moves the blade up and down. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it does. The one over here on this side will move it this way or that way, so you can make angled cuts. But we don't need that today. All right, so we're going to turn these simple plywood sheets into a backing for a beautiful piece of work. Let's get our safety gear on, because safety is always important. Okay, safety glasses on. Now, fun fact about this is actually refurbished 1960s Craftsman 100 table saw. Now, when I got this thing, it was destined for the junkyard, full of rust and decay, but we brought it back to life, and it's still working now as well as it did back in the 1960s. So let's go ahead, honey. You want to start up the saw for me? Stop it. Now that was a little bit more dangerous than we anticipated, just because, well, it had that little piece that had already been used. But you never stop once you start. If you stop, that's when you're going to have backups and kickoffs, and you don't want that. Also discovered that this is a little low. I think when I readjusted it to show you how to do it, I didn't adjust far enough up. Beautiful. Now we have our two 66 1/2 or two 33 1/4 inch boards, which together make 66 1/2. All right, now we're going to cut the width of these, which we need the width to be 42 inches exactly. We're going to need a tape measure for this. Got two more cuts to make, and these ones will be rip cuts, whereas those ones were cross cut. See, I don't know if you can see this, but see how the grain is going this way? Well, when you're cutting across the grain, that's called a cross cut. When you're cutting with the grain, the length of the board, that's called a rip cut. And now we're going to rip cut these down to 42 inches. we are ready to do our rip cut. Go ahead and start her up. Alright, so now we have both of our boards cut at 42 inches wide and 33 1/4 inches long each. So they'll butt up to make 66 1/2. So once it's done, what I like to do, and what you should always do, is put the blade, first power it down, take the power off, and then you're going to roll the blade down underneath the fence. That way, if for some reason it does get turned on, you can, you know, save yourself from getting hurt. Another thing you want to do, so you can move your fence right over the blade. That way no one accidentally gets something caught on it, unless you need this for some other project. But there you go, now it's safe, it's unplugged, the blade's down, and we're done with our cuts. Okay, thank you for joining us today, and tomorrow we'll try and get the rest of this done so that we can present it to the very special recipient of this project. So thank you very much, honey.
You're welcome.
You're being very professional here, see? Very professional. Until next time, stay safe, take care of each other, and as always, be creative. Alright, let's go put everything away.